I'm trying to re-explore it myself. I'm trying to see where it fits into my life, if it's more the religion, the culture, the community, the heritage.
Is it a religion or is it an ethnicity?
Is it your culture? Is it just genetics?
I'm proud to be a Jew. I don't hide my Jewish faith. Somebody asks me what religion I am, I'm Jewish.
Well, I am a Jew, and I am Israeli, and, you know, so that's what I am, so where do I go from here?
People will say, well, my parents are Jewish, but either I'm not or I guess I am by default.
I go from different poles. Part of me says, you know, if the parents are Jewish, if the mother is Jewish, that person is Jewish in some way. I usually don't stick with that.
The whole argument about matrilineal, patrilineal descent, I think was very interesting up until very recently. And now I think it's an issue and a debate that has had its time and is now past. Because I think today everyone who is a Jew by choice.
What's a Jew?
You never saw a Jew. Here, I have some sketches. There are Jews.
No kidding. They all have these horns?
No, this is the Russian Jew. The German Jew has these stripes.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of Jews who don't look Jewish, but I think that there at least is a cultural American expectation of what Jews do look like.
You know, you got the nose.
You know, big nose or whatever. And
Curly hair, usually.
Like dark hair, usually. A lot of them seem to have curly hair.
Dark hair, big nose, or whatever that people assimilate Jewish people looking like.
You at Grammy Hall would call a real Jew.
Thank you.
We're socialized to believe that being a Jew is a bad thing. Being a Jew means you have a lot of money or you're a miser. It means that you're selfish, that you don't care about other people. It means you're paranoid. It means you're neurotic. It means you're Woody Allen. It means you're anything that's essentially bad.
You know, you have these stereotypes that Jews run everything, you know, they're pushy, they're victims, they're neurotic, they're cheap.
Maybe they'll make fun of Jews or they'll say bad things about Jews, but then look, Seinfeld's like the top-rated show. People love it.
You were making out during Schindler's List?
Well, I really think that Jerry Seinfeld has done something for young adult Jews, because he doesn't talk about being Jewish on the show, but he is so Jewish. Like, there is no question that he's Jewish. I mean, beyond his name. Everything the man does is Jewish.
I don't know if Jerry Seinfeld's Jewish, to tell you the truth.
I don't think there are any Jews on the show, are there? I don't know what you're talking about.
The real question is, for what you're doing, is there something significant demographically, attitudinally, behaviorally, that's different about this group in terms of their Judaism than previous generations? I think that's a much more important question. There are some real differences.
There's definitely differences because, first of all, because we're growing up further away from the Holocaust, I think makes a big difference, especially compared to our parents' generation, who really grew up when the Holocaust was the focus of Jewish identity, even if it wasn't talked about. I mean, that was the one event that was really in everyone's consciousness.
Someone who's approaching 50 years old now, as I am, I still have a few years yet, grew up in the aftermath of the Holocaust. Whether one lost family in the Holocaust or not, everyone of my age grew up in a home where the awareness of the Holocaust was profound. The Holocaust is still important, and Schindler's List, as an example, has made a tremendous impact on people. But it seems like ancient history in a way.
Yes, we need to think a lot of the same thoughts about the Holocaust. I don't think you should omit things, but you should address the issue that, like, we're 2 generations removed.
You know, I was having lunch with some guys from NBC, so I said, did you eat yet, or what? And Tom Christie said, no, Jew, not did you, Jew eat, Jew, no, not did you eat, but Jew eat, Jew, you get it?
The anti-Semitism that the 20-something group is facing now does come more from pronouncements from people like Farrakhan, or Zionism is racism, or these ridiculous revisionists. And so it's kind of a media battle. You know, it's on that level. And yes, you can internalize these negative messages, but they're not going to hurt as much as applying for a job and being told that the quota for Jews has been met that year, which is what, you know, our parents went through in my generation.
40 years or 50 years ago, American Jews faced fairly significant barriers to advancement in the society. There was significant anti-Semitism of the sort that prevented Jews from entering a variety of professions, colleges. That doesn't exist today, despite the fact that if you ask most Jews, then they'll say there's a lot of anti-Semitism out there, but the reality in terms of Jewish life is that it's possible to enter virtually any profession that you want and not to have barriers erected because you're Jewish.
You get off the plane in Israel, and immediately they're like, welcome to Israel, the Holy Land. And I'm like, oh, great, I'm from America, home of the Whopper. It's discouraging, because it's not like regular Jews over there. It's not your, you know, let me help you fill out your tax forms Jews. It's the, will you hold my machine gun while I take a leak Jews. They're very tough.
Israel, that's a really good point. You know, when we were growing up, Israel was heroic, and we had nothing but positive associations with the kibbutzniks and with Golda Meir and with, you know, Ben Gurion and all of that. It was just an archetype.
I can't really think of any positive images of being Jewish in my generation, because even Israel was sort of a rallying, it gave Jews a sense of pride, you know, in the past generation. In this generation, all we've seen of Israel are these murderous terrorists, of human rights abusers.
Israel was always that gallant little underdog democracy fighting for survival against all the odds. Now the Israelis have annexed East Jerusalem and the Golan Heights, settled down more or less permanently on the West Bank, and occupied close to half of Lebanon. In the interests of self-defense, that gallant little underdog, Israel, has suddenly started behaving like the neighborhood bully.
Generation before was part of the making of Israel. My generation, the most significant event was the Six-Day War. That happened when I was 20-something. The most significant event for the current generation is the war in Lebanon, the Intifada, and now the peace process. The relationship to Israel is totally different. The role Israel plays in identity of younger Jews is different.
Through about much of the century, we have defined ourselves by what we're not, or in opposition to something. In opposition to anti-Semitism, you need to be Jewish because 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. You need to be Jewish and be proud of the state of Israel. Well, now, our generation, though the Holocaust is an important part of our collective memory, most of us, and especially children younger than us, haven't met any survivors, and we only learn about it in history books. Most of us do not experience anti-Semitism, and most of us have, or at least I have been around since I was born after the '67 war. So I'm seeking to be part of and to help shape a Judaism that defines ourselves by who and what we are, which is a challenge. It's much easier to define oneself in opposition to something than rather to state what we are. And I find that exciting, a bit daunting, but a challenge nonetheless.
Well, the greatest problem facing Jews in America is our functional illiteracy.
Most Jews that I know don't know the difference between a kiddush and a kaddish. And if you ask them a simple question, they don't know the answer.
I don't know anything about the religious part. I don't know anything about it. I went to Sunday school since I was in kindergarten, and I never learned anything.
I don't even know half the prayers, which is an embarrassment considering that, you know, I went to 12 years of Hebrew school and, you know, I went to Israel God knows how many times, and we had Shabbat every week.
The only prayer I know is the prayer for wine, because you said it so much, how could you not remember it?
Sometimes I don't even realize it's a holiday until I go in the grocery store and I see all the matzah like lined up.
I used to remember Passover when I was a kid. I went to an elementary school that was all Italian and Irish, you know? And I'd show up on Passover with matzah and a boiled egg on Spaghetti Day, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The Fitzpatrick twins would be sitting across from me like, what do you got to eat them crackers for? All you could think was, years ago my people were slaves in the land of Egypt. Then Moses came forth unto Pharaoh and said, let my people go. And then we fled through the desert to the promised land. Yeah, what do you got to eat them crackers for? So finally, I told them I had stomach cancer and couldn't have anything spicy.
There is a complete ignorance among Jews about what Judaism is, what it stands for, its teachings. Judaism is a 5,000-year-old culture. You cannot pack 5,000 years of teaching and insights even into 12 years. Even if you had gone to Hebrew school from day one, you cannot know everything that Judaism teaches.
What's the worst thing your parents did to you? I'll tell you what they did. They enrolled you in a Sunday school, which by and large should have been called a Shanda school because you learned nothing. And in fact, you didn't want to go. You wanted to stay in bed on Sunday morning. And so what happened? Your parents made you get out of bed, they made you get dressed, they took you there, they dropped you off, and then they came home and went back to bed. What kind of example is that for a kid?
There are Jews in their 20s who are religiously and very committed Jews, very involved in the Jewish community, and for whom Judaism is a central part of their identity. There are others who aren't clear what role they want it to play, and yet others are alienated from it for reasons that are often highly individual.
When I go to temple, I've been to temple not very rarely, I feel very estranged and alienated from the people there, and I don't feel connected, and it hurts. Because part of me wishes that I could have some sort of ritual where I wouldn't be proselytized and banged over the head with any. I don't like organized religion in general.
Organized religion, to me, isn't as important as spirituality. And I'd rather focus on spirituality than Jewishness, so I think I've grappled much more with my issue of my higher power, where I fit into this whole kind of complicated world, than do you follow laws in the Torah that were written, 5,000 years ago.
I don't know, I look at my grandparents to my parents, and it seems like we keep getting farther and farther away from, I guess, their ideals, and it seems like someday, like our kids, or if it keeps going, they may not even know what being Jewish is. They may not know anything, because I mean, there's such a huge gap between how religious or involved my grandma was to my mother to us. I mean, we're all pretty apathetic. I mean,
Well, I kind of felt like it's been on hold, really, the religion, the whole Jewish thing, for me. My mind has not been on that as much. I mean, every time there's a holiday, I feel a little bit guilty that I'm missing it and I'm not doing anything. But I just have always felt like now I'm doing so many other things, and there's, if it was really easy to do, I'd do it. But it would be much more of an effort than I'm willing to make right now.
Wanting to feel really comfortable about being Jewish and feel a connected part of the Jewish community without doing anything about it is a little bit like my wishing that I were a really good tennis player, but not taking tennis lessons, not picking up the racket, not going out on the tennis court, or not finding somebody else to teach me or to play with me. So what good does it do? So I'd say, just do it, as the ad says nowadays. That's what I'd say to them, just do it. I think the rewards are potentially very great.
I think it's too easy for Jews to assimilate, and it's too appealing for Jews to assimilate because, I mean, I know it's been very easy and very appealing for me, you know, to kind of shun my Judaism.
As you become more and more accepted into a culture, it becomes harder and harder to stay a cohesive group within that. And I think that's really the challenge for American Jewry, is to try to stay a Jewish community while being a part of American society.
Look, we live in this overwhelmingly non-Jewish Christian culture. None of us sitting in this room, and probably not too many people we even talk to, would embrace a sort of the, you know, ghettoization of Jews like the Lubavitch in Crown Heights, you know. And if you're not going to live like that, if you're going to say we want our children to go to college and we want them to be exposed to all these other cultures and to all these other people, then, you know, assimilation is part of that reality.
You integrate into the general society, you integrate, and that means not only working and living and recreating and all the rest, it also means marrying and raising children. That's what intermarriage is about.
Okay, this is the tricky question here. Like, are you gonna marry a Jewish woman? I mean, geez.
And do you, David, take this woman, Carrie, to be your lawfully wedded wife, in sickness and in health, to love, honor, and respect her till death do you part?
I do. Then if there is no one here who objects to this
Then
union...
by the powers vested in me.
And me.
And by the covenant of Moses and Abraham.
By God and the state of Massachusetts.
By the state of Israel.
We
now pronounce you
husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
I think it's very hard to know what kind of identity is going to emerge out of a situation in which 50% of Jews intermarry, which is apparently the statistic now.
The intermarriage rate now at 50% means that everybody is dealing with this, because if you yourself have not intermarried or your sister or brother hasn't, then you know your niece will. And how are you going to deal with this?
The intermarriage rates are now put at 60%, some people say 70%, whatever the real number is. The reality is that we have a declining Jewish community in this country, and unless we act quickly, what we're going to find is that our base narrows considerably.
I think that one of the biggest problems hitting our generation now is this whole intermarriage thing, because if you really think about it, it is a really big problem, and I think we are going to be a deciding generation on what happens.
Because I think, why? Why do we have to marry other Jews? But then I think, well, yeah, it's kind of like, why? I guess, well, they say, well, it makes things easier than when you bring up your children, you bring them up Jewish, and there's not all that confusion. But I think you could still bring up the children Jewish, even if you didn't marry someone who wasn't Jewish.
I was close to getting married to a non-Jewish girl, and the issue, getting married wasn't an issue. Where, how, when. The kids were an issue. It was, and I was really surprised.
I don't think it was anything I ever thought about. I've dated Jewish guys. I've dated, you know, I just dated people that I liked. I never looked at religion as being a priority for somebody who I wanted to be with.
I prefer to date Jews at this stage in my life because it is such a big part of the way that I think. It is such a big part of my sort of search and discovery of identity, and most people who aren't Jewish probably couldn't understand that.
Actually, I've been dating a Catholic person for 3 years, so that's, yeah. No, I haven't. I don't think I've ever dated a Jewish guy, actually. I just haven't met one that I've been interested in.
I said to myself for a while, I would never date a Jewish girl. I said that because you're scared that you're going to end up like your parents.
I've never dated a Jew, and that's a problem in my family because I'm expected to marry a Jew, and if I don't, that will be the tragedy.
From the family, it's like, you know, you got to marry a nice Jewish girl.
My mom always said to me, you know, you got to marry a nice Jewish boy. Jewish boys make good husbands.
My sister and I were both told You get your PhD first, then you get married, marry a good Jewish boy.
My boyfriend's Filipino, and after we've dated for a while, I took him to visit, and my parents are very open-minded, and I know they like him very much. But I know it, like my grandmother, who is the old traditional, you know, I could just hear her in the back of her mind saying, I like him very much, but he's not a doctor, he's not a lawyer, and he's not Jewish. You know what I mean?
A lot of people, young people, I think, have gotten the message from their parents or grandparents, you have to marry somebody Jewish, as if that's all there is to being Jewish. And therefore, in a way, it kind of complicates the issue for them because they perhaps didn't get a sense of why being Jewish is valuable and pleasant and important.
I look at sharing my life with another person as a real life partnership, as sharing who I am and building a family and building a life and a community in a sense. And while it's nice to have somebody who I can go hiking with or somebody who I can like go to the bookstore with, I want somebody also who I can hang a mezuzah in my new home with and who I can celebrate Shabbat with, and somebody who I can have the holy days and holidays with, and who shares that part of who I am.
As I'm getting older, I personally feel that I would like to meet and end up with a Jewish female. There's no doubt about it. But I don't hold myself to it because I don't think it's proper, right for me to say I'm only going to find a Jewish girl and that's it. I just go with the flow, and if I meet somebody and then it works out, it'll be great. It'll be much to my advantage, I think.
Well, I have to be realistic, and that's a possibility that I might marry somebody that's not Jewish. It would be more convenient if I married someone that was Jewish, but you can't plan these things.
Obviously, it'd make everything easier if I married a Jewish woman, and that's in the back of my mind. But I guess I can't take the step yet and commit to say I'm only going to marry a Jewish woman.
What's at the core of contemporary Jewish identity for 20-year-olds? What's at the core of Jewish identity for contemporary 40-year-olds? What's at the core of contemporary Jewish identity for 60-year-olds? That's the problem. You take away the centrality of Israel as an ideology, what do you have? Fundraising? Synagogue? What?
Are you religious?
I guess I'm a non-practicing Jew.
Hey, I'm a non-practicing virgin.
I think a lot of Jews feel that, the cultural identity is sufficient. That they know they're Jewish, they eat bagels on Sunday, they go to the Jewish Film Festival once a year, that's enough. And I think that the place that they need to be pushed on is, well, two things. One is I want them to understand that culture doesn't just come out of a vacuum. That Jewish culture is linked to Jewish religion. And even if you don't practice Jewish religion anymore, understand that these ethical values that you're talking about as Jewish, come out of somewhere. The other thing is I don't know that cultural identification will have sustaining value, that it will be able to, that eating bagels will make your children Jewish.
People on an individual level need to examine their identity. They need to take control. Where do they come? Where do I come from? What does it mean to me? What has Judaism done for me in my life? And I think that's a question most people say nothing to, and they're lying to themselves. Because I think that even in the smallest, most subtle ways, Judaism has really nurtured a lot of people who would deny it.
Being a Jew is not easy, and there's no easy answer to it. But if someone wants to understand in a deeper sense what being Jewish means, all they have to do is go to a library or a bookstore. They don't have to go to Hillel or to go to some place. They can start with some reading. We Jews have been writing for 5,000 years, but it's a lot of good books.
I believe that the whole essence of being a Jew, the whole essence of understanding who we are, is to understand that we are part of a civilization that possess a common history, common language, common literature, common art forms, common religion, philosophy, and common land. And if I could idealize what I would like to see in the Jewish world, it would be to teach people those 6 key elements. You learn those 6 elements, you know what it is to be a Jew. History, language, literature, art forms, religion, philosophy, and land.
Tradition, 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 tradition.
So the question that all of us face as human beings as we enter into adulthood is, what are we going to make of this inheritance that we carry around with us as a matter of course? And the inheritance is being the child of the people whose child we are. So the first question to ask yourself as a Jew is not what do I believe, but where do I stand? What am I going to make of this? How am I going to take on this tradition in both senses of the phrase, take it on? How am I going to make it mine?
As a Jew, this is yours. You know, whether you like it or not, whether you claim it or not, it's yours. And if you unpack it and repack it for yourself, you know, take this chest you've been given that's full of, you know, God knows what things from whose attics, and unpack it and repack it and make it your own, it can be the most precious treasure that a person can have in their life.
It can really start anywhere, and I think it can be anything. It can be modern Jewish literature, it can be the Holocaust, it can be Bible. I don't think it really matters, because I think as soon as you take the step in, you're engaging with the tradition. And for me, that's what identity is engaging with the tradition. Doing a movie, you know, making a video.
Uh-oh, we're in.
You're in. You're sucked in.
The bottom line of all this is that if we take the Judaism presented to us as a given, it will fail us and we will fail it.
People don't need religion and just religion and the religious sense of community like they have in the past. And so we need to help reshape and reform that so that it can meet people's needs and sustain something that I think is beautiful and is special and that should be kept alive.
I think that if our generation doesn't make a concentrated effort to remember who they are, our kids will forget real fast.
It's an open question, ideologically, structurally, conceptually, operationally. Who's going to be a Jew and what the Jewish community looks like is up for grabs.